So what have we done? Well, we have created a news articles and we have a list of it. But then you could say to me, Nikolai, isn't this enterprise architecture? Well, it is. So instead of basically hard coding the news articles list as we have done here, we would like to abstract it a bit. And in a production environment, you wouldn't just create a new news article like this and not save it because it would be dead whenever the server is done serving its purpose. So I want to take you through the drawing board again, because actually what we have here is a controller and a models folder. But do you remember we talked a bit about the service? That's what we are going to do now. All right, so in a controller, usually the controller is responsible for the logic. The view then is responsible for just showing stuff. This could be an image or a news article. So the controller takes care of the logic. And in our example, we are creating a new news article and we are adding it to a list. And then we are returning the list to the view. That's totally fine, but it will be cumbersome to have a lot of code inside of here. Instead of doing that, we can actually use something called a service. Service. And this service will be responsible for going out to the internet, for example. So we can implement that using HTTP client, going out to the internet. And whenever the service has done its job and done what it needs to do, it will take that result, maybe do some stuff inside of the service. And then when the controller wants to do things, let's say you get a request from here. You get the request, you go to the news article as we have done. You can see when we go to the news article, it comes a request along the way to the controller. The controller sees, oh, it's a GET request. And what am I going to do with it? I will route it to the correct place, but I need it to be in the correct method. So we did have a lot of methods here. Actually, we had just one, but in another example, we will have more methods. And we have one called get, right? So this get here returns a JSON result. And remember, we had a lot of code inside of here. Now the controller will, inside of this method, it will just ask the service. So whatever service dot get news articles, for example. So now this service is actually responsible for doing its job, whatever, fetching stuff from the internet, doing its thing, maybe adding it to a list, the result, and then sending that information back to the controller, to the correct endpoint. And whenever you have that information here, then you can return it back to the client like this. So that's what we are going to do now. So that was a lot of technicality, and I use the word technicality just to do it right now, because that was a lot of technical jargon, as you can say. We talked about what is a controller, what is a model, what is a service, and we started to draw on this tablet the underlying pieces that works in an application like that. Why are we even doing all this abstraction? When you're learning to code, it's kind of hard to understand why are we creating a service layer, a repository layer, a model layer. Why can't we just call it whatever we would like to call it? It's a good question. And it is really important to decouple your code when it comes to testing. Also, if you have worked in a big production environment and you have seen spaghetti code, then you will see that it's really hard to understand what is really going on in the code. So by having these kind of common abstractions, which people are clear on what it actually means, then it's so much easier to understand the code, because even though you haven't written it, you can still understand this is a repository, this is a service, this is a model, this is a controller. And when it comes to unit testing and integration testing, which we're getting along in deeper videos, then you will see the benefits of it. So you're doing a great job. Keep going, and I'm really, really sure that you will get the hang of it. All right, so now that we have gotten all of these things away, let's just copy all the news articles that we are having here. Just copy it. So we will remove it for now. And what we are going to do is we will create a service. So we can say to do, have a service here called news article service. And what we like to do is actually create a folder to hold our service. So go here, click on folder here, and then do services like that. Inside of here, we can create a new file called news article service, just like that. And then just call it .cs for C#. Just make it to the right, so we can have the controller on the left side and the service on the right side. It's nice. And then we can actually just make this one a bit smaller, and we have it. So we can also stop the application for now. So we want a service, and the first thing we should do is create a namespace of C# app.services, and do it like that. Then we can do public class, news, article, and then service. And then we can just do something like this. Oh, we're getting help. And inside of here, we get a lot of help, but I'm not going to get all those things now. We can then just make a constructor, CTOR for short. Let's zoom in a little bit more. So this constructor will, for now, not take in any parameters. But what we would like to do is the constructor to just exist for now. Okay, so now let's just think for a moment before we code. We are inside of here, and we want to get a news article. But we don't want to get just one news article, we want to get all news articles. So let's just pretend that we have the service already. So let's just do it like this. War, news, article, service. And it will be red because we don't have it. So it will be red because it's not implemented yet. So let's just add this first. Quick fix. Using this. Yes. Okay, so now we could say news article service dot, and then what do we want to get? Well, we want to get news articles. So actually get news articles is nice. We could say get all news articles, but it kind of implicitly is known that when we get the news articles, we are getting all of them. So we will see it's red now because this method isn't implemented. So if we take a look at the service that we have here on the right side, we know that we only have a constructor in here. We don't have any method yet called get news articles. So let's just hover over it and see if it can help us create it. Well, you can see refactor doesn't help us. So we will do it on our own. So for now, we can then just say private void get news articles, just to have the bare minimum of what the method will actually do. And we'll use the C# way of having the correct bracket. All right, so right now we can clearly see that private void was a good thought process in the beginning, but void means do not return anything at all. So actually here we can just do list of a news article. Because to remember, we have the news article as a model inside of our folder here. So we need to refer to it. So just click on this bubble and click using C# app models, and it will be good to go. Inside of here, we are not returning anything. That's why it's complaining a lot. So, and also here you can see it says is inaccessible because it's private. So let's make it public, so actually this guy can find it as well. But then it's saying something more. It's complaining. So now it just took some time. You can see it's happy again. We were just a bit fast. All right, so we now have a public list of a news article. That's totally fine. And we don't have anything in it. Do you remember inside of here, as we had in the beginning, we had ID, author, and so on. Let's see if Copilot can help us a bit. It'll be a bit faster. Okay, title, fine. Give it some more. Okay, no, then we will have another. So now we have two articles. We have one ID, ID equals to 1. We have the second one is ID equals to 2, and we have title, second news article, first news article. So that's great. We have get news articles here, but it's not returning any value. So we need to say return and then return news articles like this. News articles. Now it will be really happy because if you take a look here, you can see, we can just now wait a bit for this one. I will just comment it out so you're not thinking about it. So we have news article service. We initialize it like this. Totally fine. And then we have news article service, get news articles. Okay, so that's cool. And then we get back some result from this guy. The result we are getting back is basically a list of news articles. And the thing is that we can work with the result now. So var news article result is equal to news article service get news articles. So now we are getting the result from this service here. It will give us back this news articles list. And then when we get back the result here, we store it inside of the news article result. So when we now return, we can do return new JSON result, news article result instead of news article service or news articles. So now it will be happy. And if you notice, it's less code now because we have removed the code from the controller to the service. So the service is now responsible for doing all these things. In the next video, I would like to show you how we can create a repository pattern. And I would actually like to get rid of this code as well into a repository service. But before that, I would like to show you that it's actually working. So now we can do run and debug. And you can see this is the news article. This is the last thing we had. But if we now click it again, you can see it says ID equals to 1, first news article, content is 0, author is 0, and date is set to something random or a standard default version. But what you can see is actually this information is coming directly from our service. So we have now decoupled our controller by making the controller using the service instead, and the service is responsible for doing whatever it wants with the information, the data, and then sends it back to the controller. So that's what we have done, and you can see it's a bit more cleaner in our code because it's now only 3 lines, and we can also make it even cleaner by removing this guy and then just actually have this. And then we could also make this 1 line if we wanted to. But for now, we have refactored our controller to be responsible using a service. And then in the next video, I want to show you how we can continue on cleaning up the code and actually make it use something called a repository. But before that, I would like to show you that this is a bad practice, this here. So cool that you're sticking to the end of the video. I hope you got some out of it. I hope you coded along, and I'm hoping that you're becoming a better software developer by watching this video with me. Great job. See you in the next video.